Peace, brother.
How you doing?
Good, brother. Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I cannot complain.
Right
Hey,
on, man.
do I need to take the background off? Is
Nah,
that
man. Nah,
okay?
you keep it how you want to.
I
You
was
see
just,
my background.
yeah, I was just wondering about like how you gotta make sure you cover up logos and stuff. You know what I'm
Nah,
saying?
this is me. This is me. This is no other entities. This is me and you, brother to brother. So, fly your flags, talk about your background, talk about who you are. We ain't got to worry about any interference of any logos or anybody. It's just us, man, you know.
That's what's
So
up.
Yo, man, so we're using the free um Zoom link. So after like 35, 40 minutes, it'll cut us right off. So if we need to jump back on, I'm open to that. So I just want
Oh
to put
man, listen. If you can get us done in that time frame,
uh-huh.
we, you know, I'm trying to put on a earpiece real quick.
Uh-huh. Okay. So let me know when you're ready and we'll jump right in. And so I guess just while you're
Tell me,
getting
can you
ready,
hear me?
I hear you well. I hear you well.
Wonderful. All right,
All right.
I'm set up. I'm ready when you are, boss.
Okay, so once again, thanks for joining me, man, on this platform. This is for the Prison to Promise podcast, where I collect stories, basically, man, of people who have found post-incarceration success, and so I identified you as one of those people, and so I wanted to be able to grab your story with hopes of displaying it to the world, with hopes that maybe we can help encourage and motivate other people through your story, because I'm sure there's somebody who your story will resonate with.
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. It's always a pleasure to be able to share. When you go through a journey that's rife with trials and tribulations and you overcome those situations and people want to hear from you
Yeah.
so that they could learn or be inspired, that's the greatest gift for me. So it's a pleasure, it's an honor, it's a privilege, and I can't wait to jump in.
Right on, brother. And you hit something right on the muscle. You said something that people can learn from. And I'm trained as an educator. And so mostly everything I do is trying to educate, trying to bring the best out of people through other means. And so I think stories is one of the shortest distance between people. And through our stories, we can feel closer to each other. We can learn a lot about each other and we can see similarities in ourselves. And so, with that, man, uh, let's just jump right in. Like most of our listeners, most of our participants are people who are formerly incarcerated or have some sort of alignment or engagement with carceral systems. And so, um, I know that you did some time back in the day, and I know you've turned your life around. So maybe you could just take a moment to tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh man, when you get into that, I'm almost 50, so that's a long story. But I hit
Let's
the
say just a little
highlights.
bit.
Yeah, I hit the highlights. I think that probably are most noteworthy for the audience that we're talking about. One of the things that it's almost like a motto now. I say is I started in delinquency at 14 years old and left federal prison, to have my last experience with any carceral institution in that manner at 41 years old. So like I have this 1441 in my mind. Like those are significant times to me. But all of my life in between it, I was system impacted, and it was really by choice, because if you calculate how I grew up, the things that I had exposure to, that wasn't supposed to be my story. And so, um, having that story, I truly believe was a calling on my life from the Creator, and that the purpose that I serve right now is essentially to support people who are having those similar experiences. So that's the broad overview. Now we can like fill in details as we go along. You're on mute.
My bad. So yeah, I appreciate those that broad overview, bro. You talked about spending a good portion of your life in delinquency, but at some point, um, you realize that you need to turn your life around. Maybe you can take us right to the point or the moment you realize you needed to change the direction of your life. What was that like?
So I have some pivot points, right? And I think these are probably anybody can relate. The things that impact us a lot, and they change the way we view. And so one of mine was at 18 years old, I was shot in the back. I was assailing somebody, and I was armed robbing somebody else, and I became a victim. And so in that situation, that was one of my pivot points. Before that, I had been a petty drug dealer, uh, thief. You might as well say because robbing people is thievery. Um, so uh, really, I just call myself at that point a royal screw up. That was just all that was going on. School, you know, on probation for some minor domestic violence and some stupid stuff, not going to school. Uh, and I went with some of my partners and we went to do a robbery and I ended up becoming the victim of the robbery. And so paralyzed. And so at that point, when I was in the hospital, I was like, dang, you know what? I had a son that was born, and one I didn't know that was on the way. But I was like, dang, I almost threw my life away for nothing. What what if my eyes didn't open back up? What if my son didn't, even though I was paralyzed, what if this was it? How much would I have cheated this little almost 2 year old little boy out of
Mhm.
a significant part of his life? So that was one of them. Um, it wasn't the one because unfortunately after that I was 18, a high school dropout. I didn't have a lot of marketable skills, so I did what I knew how to do, which was I went back to college to stay on benefits from my parents because it was the same year I had graduated from high school and I just magically copped a GED because I was rebelling against going to school. So one of my probation criteria was get a high school, go to school, right? So I was like, man, I ain't going to school. You don't tell me what to do. Look, even in my madness and rebellion, a good thing came out of it. By I really went to Job Corps. Got kicked out of Job Corps for a dirty UA. They had a zero tolerance policy. And I got sent back. As soon as I got sent back, I went to the community college and got a GED, and that eliminated me from having to go to school. So um, all of that happened, and at the same time, I got shot during the robbery, and then I'm like paralyzed now, and I don't have a bunch of marketable skills. And little do I know that my second child is getting ready to be born, and I have an idea. He might be mine, but I don't know for sure. And so all of these things are happening, and when I go back, I literally end up going back to school, taking some weed, selling the weed, and that was my like supplemental income for
Mhm.
for being a parent now who was actually trying to be engaged in a different manner. It wasn't the best, but it was at least a realization. If you are a father, you have to you need to be a part of your child's life.
Yeah,
So
man.
I did what I thought I.
Right on. Thanks for sharing that, man. And facing incarceration and a life-altering injury, man, I'm sure those experiences definitely change your outlook on life, et cetera, et cetera. But as you were making your shifts towards life, different shifts and different outlooks towards life, um, what do you think were your biggest mental or maybe emotional shifts that you had to make?
Well, one of them in that first pivot was that gangster mentality and all of this. I mean, they've coined it toxic masculinity, but really it was emotional unintelligence. Because you're
Mm,
mad, You probably depressed, got some anxiety. I'm speaking in hindsight now, but these are
Hmm.
all emotions that I probably was running the gamut of and not understanding, knowing. Uh, so this thing had to be checked because all of that Garanum will jump out the car, we're gonna beat you down, I'm still off, that had to
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
And having a child, I had to be like, okay, look, I almost died and got took away.
Hmm.
Jail is a thing. I was a legal firearm carrier at the time, so I'm in a compromised capacity. I'm actually selling drugs, so I'm like, yo, I got not some money in my pocket. I probably need to have some type of protection. So carrying a firearm. Now I'm having to think different. Like, yo, if I shoot somebody around my child, what do I do? How do I protect my child? So I started to move different, minimize the people I hung around because I got a kid to look out for. You
Hmm.
know, the places that I went, I'm in and out because they're not conducive for hanging around with a 2 year old. So
Hmm.
those things shifted early, but the one thing that I hate that didn't happen until later was um, discipline of putting in some I call it blood work, like putting some hard blood, sweat, and tears work in the beginning so that you can get a handsome reward in the end. And that was a critical uh, miscalculation, allowing laziness and hey, I gotta sell these drugs because I gotta take care of my kids. I can't not provide them a quality
Yeah.
of life.
Yeah.
So I think that one there was a miscalculation that I probably, in hindsight, that was a left turn when I should have went right. And that's really what led into the next pivot point, which was getting that case that I got 15 years. I had to plead out to 15 years in the feds back when crack was 100 to 1.
Hmm.
And this is in the early 2000s because I was guilty. So another thing that was kind of like branded to me by my mom. If
Hmm.
you can't stand the heat, stay out of the kitchen. So
That's right.
when they come see you, make sure you own what you did. And so there were other people who were in jeopardy. I had my little cousin with me. He was in jeopardy of if we went to trial, they was trying to give us all this time. But I said, look, you didn't have anything to do with this. This was mine, and I took my drug charge, my gun charge. But there was another firearm in the car, and the feds was like, your cousin is taking this, but we gonna give you this possession of a firearm in relation to a drug trafficking crime because you was in the car. It was another gun, and we saying either you cop to it or we'll take you to trial and we're gonna pin it on you anyway. So he took that plea bargain and he did 22 months in jail. So at that time, that was a 5 year uh, sentence. And so he gets 22 months. They let him out to go handle his affairs and self surrender to a camp. Shortly after that, and he did another, like, I want to say he did like 20 months or something. And with his good time, he was back home. So, uh, man, that's what happened. That was the next pivot point. And
Yeah.
going into prison, knowing that my kids was 8 and 10 years old,
Hmm.
and I had to do 12 and a half straight with, and that provided I didn't lose any good time, which I did. And I ended up doing 13 years. But that was it. That was that process, 26, 27, going into federal prison, knowing I'm coming back at 41. I had to make that time count. It was
Yeah.
no way to to not do something different. And so that
Hmm.
was the pivot point. And that was a bunch of more pivot points in that
Yeah.
process. But
Yeah.
I went in there with the intention to come back to my community, my family, the person that I would make my partner eventually, spouse. To come back to them worth something.
Take it. Dig it. And that's heavy, man. You talked about earlier, you talked about taking the left turn, taking the lazy route, selling drugs to sell you to take care of your kids. And I've heard that story so many times during the time that I was incarcerated, and since I've been doing this work that we do, working with formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated people, saying, "Yo, I had to hustle to take care of my kids," but we realize that that takes away from our kids more than it gives to them. But then you also talked about being incarcerated, and you didn't use these words, but it sounded like you developed some discipline and you developed some direction because you wanted your life to look better when you came back home. And you had two children at the time. So I'm wondering, like, what role did fatherhood play in your journey to redeem yourself or to change yourself?
To be honest, that was the main anchor. Like the okay, when you go to prison, like your parents have had you all of your life
Hmm.
and they've lived their life. But when you have children, you have a responsibility to people who didn't ask for any of the stuff you're exposing them to.
Right on.
And so for me, like they were the anchor that said, when I went in, I said, yo, when I come home, I have to return to my kids better than I went in, or else I've twice committed an egregious offense against them.
Hmm.
One, I took myself away from for them in the most formative years of their life. And then two, I returned back to them no more valuable, no better than I left. And I'm probably continuing to perpetuate a trauma that I already ripped open in their childhood. So for
Hmm.
me, that was really the only thing that was my anchor to why I went to prison and did all of the different things that I did. I wanted to
Hmm.
say something to you speaking on me highlighting the lazy route. When I
Hmm.
was in prison, I went to college. They still had the associate's degree. Vance Granville Community College would come into the prison. You could earn an associate's in business administration. And when I was taking the program, I had never in my life been an A student. And so I was like, man, I ain't got nothing else to do here but study and get with study groups and do things. So the whole time I'm in college, I'm making the dean's list. I
Hmm.
breeze straight through in the first 2 years and get two year-long certifications in office systems technology and certification in business administration, and then an associate's degree in business administration. One day I was sitting on my bunk and I was like, I had an opportunity as soon as I got paralyzed through vocational rehabilitation to take a program that Microsoft offered at the Goodwill, right? It was a basic programming program in 1995. They said 38% of people who start this program finish it, but 96% who finish it get an entry level job at Microsoft starting at $55,000 a year.
That was great money back then.
What? That's like making $150,000 right now, right?
Mhm.
And the other part to it was not only did you do that, it only took 6 weeks to finish the course. And so when I started really talking to people about the 10 years I spent selling drugs to quote unquote give my kids a better life, I was like, man, I had the occupational health hazard of jack boys, the police, the chicks that want your bread. Like I'm doing all of this to get this little bit of whatever, and then I forfeit over a decade of my life
Mhm.
that I could have been making. And I did the math. I said, if I made $2 million selling drugs, which I didn't, if I made that, if I had to just went to work for that same decade, made the same thing, adjust for inflation, and made 401k and retirement account savings, bro, I could have made what I made on the streets times over, been retired, and provided my kids the best life in the world.
Mhm.
When I say foolishness knows no bounds, oh my God.
Oh
So
my goodness, yeah.
when you say, sounds like you found discipline, I sat up every morning and said, "You was a damn fool that
Hmm.
can't take back or change the dumminess that you did, but you damn sure can never be that foolish again."
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so all the work that I'm having to put in to be reinvent myself for 13 years, man, that joint made me go so hard. I was like, listen, it ain't no way in this universe, not just on earth, in this universe,
Yeah.
that I cannot be successful
Hmm.
and that I won't work 20 hours, sleep two, bathe, eat, and do everything else I need to, and make sure that this is not the final chapter of my life ever again.
Yeah. 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 It's something about that pain and that loss that can motivate us to go hard so that we don't experience that ever again. Some people succumb to it and they stay, what I like to say is face down and ass up. But most of us, we get up and we start working because we don't want to go back through that pain. And that's what I'm hearing from you. You know, you had to go hard. So tell me this, bro. What do you what do you do or how do you work with other people nowadays to help them maybe uh, have that clarity that you came to once you were sitting on that bunk, or to help them circumvent uh, making poor decisions that lead them to prison? Like, what do you do, or how do you help communities or help young people or old folks like us? You know, how is that? What do you do?
So, so first was when I was in there, I made a declaration to myself that I was going to come back. I said, listen, I'm going to be one person who comes back to prison.
Mhm.
And in my condition, because as I said, I've been in a wheelchair since 1995. So I did all my drug dealing. I did all my time, and consequently, everything that I do post incarceration, which I've been home for 7 years now, maybe eight, I've done in a wheelchair. And
Mhm.
so I said,
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. I said to myself, I said, yo, if I can go home and become successful, and I can come back and say, look, I did all of this in this chair, you know, what is your excuse to
That's
another
right.
person? That's a heavy statement,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
So it literally started in there, but I didn't know how I was going to come back. So I give you a real quick rundown. So I get into prison, I jump into college, so I get a degree. I started to write a book because I needed my kids to know that if I died in prison, that I wasn't what anybody else would say about me. I am what these words on this page say about me. And I
Hmm.
had to share values with them and principles and morals that I might not ever get to tell them if I don't make it through this struggle. So I did that. I wrote more books in order to keep my mind fertile. I took as many classes as I could. I took classes on parenting. And then when I couldn't take the classes anymore because I was all student out, I became a facilitator. And if they went to if I didn't see a class that I wanted to see on a pound, I went to the administration, the education department, the psychology department, and I created classes. And I went and got a paralegal certification. I spent 13 years cultivating, self-educating,
Hmm.
learning the system,
Hmm.
actually going against the system from the
Hmm.
lowest place of the system, seeing successes in utilizing the system the way that it's supposed to be used in order to get the things that you got coming to you. You know,
Hmm.
so those things help me evolve into a person who knows how, just knows how. And part of knowing how is just going to find the information. You know,
That's
go
right.
find the information
That's
and
right.
then go through the process. And so a lot
Hmm.
of people don't want to do that. And I ain't have nothing better to do. So that's
Right.
what I did. And when I came home, I said, well, what can I do in order to get modestly successful in a short period of time?
Hmm.
Fortunate enough for me, I had people in my natural support that that made sure that I had everything that I needed. I had a job when I came home. I had a place to go when I came
Hmm.
home. I
Hmm.
had spent the last years of my incarceration saving money, so I came home with $10,000 in my pocket. that I said, hey, this is readjustment money. I can be modestly independent. I can make a family contribution. I can feel like I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a
Yeah, man.
man. And that's what was important to me. So I came home, I immediately put my head down and I kept bidding. I went to work 20 hours, I went to the gym, and I went to my rack. I ain't spent no money. I wanted to get as independent as far and fast as I could. And I
Mhm.
jumped back into real estate, which was something that I did before I went to prison. And I studied while I was in prison. I made contacts with other people who did that while I was in prison. And when I came home, technology afforded me an opportunity to do things that weren't available to people who did real estate
Mhm.
prior to my incarceration. And I jumped into the Airbnb business and I started to see modest success quickly. And that business built, I applied that model to a smaller type of person who needs short-term housing. And I created transitional housing model after the Airbnb model that I had
Mhm.
created. And
Mhm.
all of those things saw modest success. Then there was another thing that happened to me. As I said before, I didn't have to have the experience that I had. I chose to have it. And I
Mhm.
believe I was called to that type of experience so that I would have what they call now the credential of lived experience to be able to support other people. And that, which I didn't know was going to be a thing, was the thing that led me into community work. And I started to work with juvenile justice impacted youth. Funny thing, um, with direct services at an organization that not only supported juvenile justice impacted youth with diversion programs, they also had an arm of their business that supported men and women who were locked up in the detentions. And
Mhm.
so I staked a flag in real estate by doing housing. As soon as we could shift the focus from just market rate rentals, we started to work on impact housing that would invest in people, make a small return for an investor. So you do a double good. And then uh, after that, going and taking all of these imageries back to people who are incarcerated and start to work with them on saying, hey, listen, if you don't have access, there are things in the community that are set aside for you that if you take advantage of them, and I don't mean take advantage like abuse, I mean
Mhm.
you take advantage and use,
Right on.
they can be an investment into yourself that you can capitalize off of in the long run. You can't say that you don't have a support system because maybe your natural support isn't as developed or as safeguarding as mine was. But I'm telling you, I'm here to make sure you get plugged into all of the necessary things that you need in order to become me. A real estate professional, if that's what you want to do, a homeowner, if that's what you want to do, a business
Mhm.
owner, if that's what you want to do, connected to a network of formerly incarcerated people who are doing good with their life and making an impact every day, if that's what you want to do, you
Mhm.
have access. So
Right on.
that's where I was called to. That's what how it evolved. That's who
Mhm.
I am today. Those are the
Mhm.
things that I'm involved in. I consider myself a real estate professional who is also a public safety consultant. I design programs, I implement programs, I monitor them, manage them, and then I go on to repeat the process with different agencies, local governments, nonprofit organizations, and the likes.
Dig it, man. That's heavy, man, and that's very inspirational. All of that, what you just shared, starting out with, realizing, okay, I'm down behind the eight ball. How can I cultivate myself? And then you invested in yourself, cultivated yourself, built up networks, and then helped other people, and are continuing to help other people repeat very similar processes for their own post-incarceration success. what comes to my mind is a statement from Marcus Garvey via Bob Marley that says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And it sounds like that's just what you did. You emancipated yourself and freed your mind. And so, yo, bro, we're coming up on maybe 10 minutes left in our segment here. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you talked about being successful in your reentry, what do you think are some of the maybe some of the biggest failures in the legal system in preparing people for successful reentry?
The whole legal system.
Mind is blowing.
Man, that's a whole nother segment.
Yeah.
But to just scratch the surface, the system is not created to nurture, to provide hope, and to invest in people.
Yeah,
We
man.
have to do those things ourselves. And I
Hmm.
think that that's the most critical component or the element for me that makes
Hmm.
me say, here I have a place and a responsibility. And but I was in a detention center yesterday teaching a class,
Hmm.
and I went real hard. I mean, hard, hard, hard. Like, and the first thing that I noticed was one of the a couple of the younger men, they got offended, probably because I was pulling their card too hard in front of other people. But that emotional unintelligence is not
Hmm.
something that our system cares about, is
Hmm.
going to cater to, or invest in cultivating and evolving. And they're saying, oh, you did this offense. We're going to punish you. You need to get better and figure it out.
Hmm.
Bottom line, that's
Yeah.
it. Because when I left that actual pod, the CO locked them down. They locked them down. Oh, y'all making too much noise. Y'all gonna learn. You gonna go ahead and lock down and da 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 da. Like there's no kind of consideration for,
Right.
hey, listen, I need it to be quieter in here, or let's talk to the real actual culprits. It's five people that's making all the noise. Instead, you lock down 46 people
Right.
because five people are, look, y'all keep on. I'm telling you, I done said it 3 times. If y'all keep on being loud, I'm gonna have to remove you.
Right. 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 No systems for helping. It's just punishment, harming people. And that's what
Exactly.
these systems do. That's what I'm hearing you say. They're not built to help people, you know?
Exactly.
Wow, man.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
think there are improvements are being made as we
Hmm.
look at mental health as a whole, and as we look at where the breakdowns exist and they
Hmm.
examine the data. I mean, the numbers don't lie. If
Right.
the system was really working, then the statistical data would be better.
Right
Recidivism
on.
is high. You know,
Has
the
been.
the people the people who come back as uneducated as they left is still
Hmm.
just as great as it has been in
Yeah.
previous years. We
Yeah.
know that statistically, a person who goes to prison and gets a college education reduces the possibility of recidivism tremendously.
Drastic reduction.
Exactly, but we
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't have college in prison,
Right.
right? So those are, I mean, those are the little things, but I mean we
Hmm.
could go on. Like I said, that's another segment.
Absolutely. But clearly the system is working the way it was meant to work, to continue to harm
Absolutely.
people, to keep people coming back. But there are some
Hmm.
people who are incarcerated. I think most people who are incarcerated, they want to do something different. They want to change their lives, but maybe they don't know how to. So if somebody's listening and they're thinking, man, this dude changed his life, man, I want to change mine. What would be some advice you'd give somebody who's incarcerated who wants to change their life? Or even not incarcerated, but what advice would you give?
Self-examination and reflection is always the best. Every situation, what has helped me is every situation that doesn't go the way that I idealize it or want it to go, I look in the mirror and I ask myself, what could I have done better? No matter what anybody else had done in the situation or did in the situation,
Hmm.
what could I have done better to improve the outcome? And then
Hmm.
focusing on that type of behavior thereafter. The only other thing that I could say after that is like, if you want to know what was in my mind in that experience, the book kind of outlines all of the failures, all of the pain points for that caption of my life, for that age, for that time period, you know. And I talk about the things I went through to evolve.
Mhm, mhm.
That's it. And I can't say that that works for somebody else, but that's a
Mhm.
starting point. If you
Right
ask
on.
me where did I start, that would be it. And if you ask me today where I'm going with it, I tell you I don't know. I just want to be better tomorrow than I
Mhm.
am today.
Right on. Appreciate that. That self-reflection is where it starts. It all starts and ends with self. And so, man, as we're getting ready to get up out of here, Shabli, I want to ask you to two last things, or maybe three. One is to shout out your books where people can find them. And then two, how can people support you and reach you?
So the one is it's on Amazon. I'm just be honest. I'm reconsidering how the distribution goes. Um, but it is on Amazon. It's called The Letter to My Sons, Even a Legacy of by Chablis Dandridge. The two is if you want to find me, you can just Google me. I'm on the the
For
web
sure.
by my first and last name, but
Spell your
I'm
name for
more.
folks.
My name is Chablis, Chabis as in boy, Lis. Last name Dandridge, Dandridge. And listen, man, I'm so real out here in this world. Just call me. I mean,
Right
I'm
on.
like, just call me. I mean, I know if you're incarcerated right now, that's not the easiest thing to do. But you got if you got an email system, it is my last name, Dandridge, Dandridge, as in Charlie, G as in golf, at gmail.com. You can add me now. I'm a community person. It's more work than it is me. You know, I try to link with solid brothers like Dr. Craig, Waleed, and
Respect.
others so that we can uh, help as many people as we can. But it is more of a need than it is nurturers. So
This is true.
if it takes us a while to get back, it's not because we not. It's just because the demand is overwhelming. But we will make sure that you have a inroad to connect with us. So if you're hearing this and you want to get connected, I'm in the Charlotte, Mecklenburg metro area. So if you're coming to this area and you need support, uh, email, Google me, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram at the real Chablis on Instagram. DM me, whatever. Send me a smoke signal because I'm out here.
That's
I'm
real,
out
man.
here.
That's peace, man. And finally, Chablis, if you could capture your journey in a catchphrase or in a sentence or a title, what would it be?
I do have this. So my motto is people, passion, and purpose define life and give it meaning.
Right on.
That's just something I live by.
Right on. And yo, man, with that, we're gonna call it a wrap. Thanks for your time, brother Shelby.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yo, this was great, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Let's do it again, man. I mean, maybe
Absolutely.
focus on forensic peer support,
Mhm.
anything. You know me, man.
We'll
Down to
do
talk
that.
about anything.
So yeah, let's come back and talk about forensic peer support and more of your work and how people can get engaged with it.
Sound like a plan?
All right, man. This is gonna cut off in less than a minute. I'll be in touch,
All,
bro. All right,
all right,
peace.
family.
All right, have a
Peace.
great day. Peace.
You too.
One.
One.